Where do I start this story? Where do I pick it up from? Uh, the day I went to Motown, this is Miss Geraldine, the baby boomer, and I have a true story to tell you about the day I went to Motown. Let me start the story with my sister came down when we was on summer vacation. She came down, I think it was in May, around the first week of May, to visit my mother and my brother and I. And I think that I have a sister. Yeah, I had a baby sister at the time. I think my baby sister was about a year old when she came down to visit, like I said, summer vacation, because she stayed with my grandmother up in Detroit. They had left and went to Detroit back in 1962. But anyway, I was in grades. No, I was in junior high school. Just started junior high school when my sister came down to visit in May. And she stayed for 3 months. And she told me about Detroit, how beautiful it was and how nice it was. And she just sold me up on Detroit. And I wanted to go back. And my mother told me that I couldn't go back, but I told my mother that I'm going back. As soon as my sister get on that Greyhound bus, I'm going to be on that Greyhound bus with her. And I was on that Greyhound bus with my sister. My mother had my hair pressed real good, and I went with my sister back. I think I came to Detroit. The bus ticket was $13, so I came to Detroit for $13. And that was back around September. It had to be September the 1st because I had to start the school September the 6th. And when I got to Detroit, my grandmother wasn't expecting me to come, and she was so disappointed because my sister brought me back. And she said, "Why did you bring that girl up here without telling me?" And she kept telling me, "I'm sending you back home." And she kept saying that. I think she said that for about 3 times. And then she decided just to keep me. And I was so glad that she decided to keep me. Excuse me, because I wanted to stay in Detroit. So anyway, I stayed in Detroit, and then I know that down in Ralston, they were singing at the time, and we was young, and we just fell in love with the Supremes and stuff. And they was singing "Stop in the Name of Love," and we was young. Oh, we was just head over heels in love with the Supreme. We wanted to be like the Supreme, because when I knew I was down south, I was trying to imitate the singers on the radio. But oh, when I heard Diana Ross sing, it just blew my mind. So I just said, "Oh, I want to be a singer too." I know my voice wasn't it, but I wanted to be a singer. So anyway, and I told Beverly, my cousin, she was about 4 years younger than I was, and I had a girlfriend. She was about a year, 2 years younger than I was. So we decided we'll get a group up together. And I got the group up together. So anyway, I was playing on the phone. So I went looking in the yellow pages for a Motown number, and I found that number, and then I called them up, and I asked them if they set up an audition for us to come down. And they said they would set up an audition for the next month. So they set up an audition for us to come down. And Beverly and I and my girlfriend, so we got together and we started practicing. But I knew that my voice wasn't strong. And I know that Beverly had an alto voice. And I think that she would be the best lead, and Sylvia in our background. I think I was second soprano. I don't know what Sylvia were, because I don't think she really wanted to be a singer. She was just getting in the group because I asked her to be in the group. And Beverly, she wasn't really, it was okay, like that. So she said, "We're going to sing Martha Reeves and Vandella's here. My baby loved me." I said, "Ooh, that's a good song. We used to sing that too." We practiced. And I remember Beverly said, "My baby loves me. He really, really loves me. Oh, yeah." And we said, "Oh, yeah." She said, "And no other guy could whisper sweet things in my my ear. She used to say, ooh, 'cause my baby loves me. And we say, he really, really loves you. Oh, yeah. And we say, oh, yeah. My baby loves me. She said, he really, really loves me. And we would say, oh, yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. That's yeah, yeah. We liked it, that song, But Beverly was okay. I don't think she sang that good. And me, I was all over the place because I was nervous. And Sylvia, she would sound like a little mouse. She was in the back. Anyway, it's time for us to go down. I don't know how we got down to Motown because Motown wasn't that far from us. I think Motown had to be about 20 minutes because we lived it on the north end of Detroit. And Motown was on the west side. It was on West Grand Boulevard because years later I moved an apartment down the street from Motown because Motown used to be called Hitsville, USA. And I remember uh, Supreme, they was on Gordon's Records, and Monster Reeves. I don't know. I think Monster Reeves was on. I don't forget what record label they was on, but anyway, it was time for us to go to the audition, and we went. So I remember as it was yesterday. We went down in a small basement because Motown was such a small record company back up in the early 60s, the mid 60s. So anyway, it was seem like yesterday. We went down in the basement, and I remember on the left hand side was a small piano, and I remember the producer named that auditioned us. His name was Alvin Whittaker. So he took us down in the basement. And he sat near the piano. I thought he sat close. He was on the piano, well, sitting on the bench, the piano, and he just said, "Let me see what y'all can do." So, baby, Bethany, she started singing, "My baby." She started singing the song I was singing just a few minutes ago. Anyway, he said, "Do y'all have something else?" And my voice was just going all over the place because I was nervous, and Sylvia was like a little mouse, and Beverly, her voice was just mediocre. It was just okay. So we asked her, did we have anything else? And we said no. And he thought about it. He said, sorry to tell you, but y'all's talent didn't reach our standards, and we felt bad, but we didn't feel that bad because I don't know. We wanted to be a singer, but then we knew that we didn't have. I think Beverly knew that she didn't have what it takes. She was just doing it because I asked her to do it. And Sylvia, she wasn't really into singing. And me, I wanted to do it, but then we walked out and we forgot about it. And then we heard another comment, do you want to be a star? But that wasn't about anything. Then we went to Diamond Jim. He had a record company. He was going out. He wasn't doing anything. And so I think we just finally let it go. And I just let it go because I know that that wasn't for me. So I just put my tail between my legs and just walked on out and decided that I had to do something else. I had went to another audition. This guy was starting a gospel group, but he wasn't about nothing. So the group, I don't know if the group ever did anything. I wanted to be in that group, but I don't know about him. And then there's another guy was trying to tell me, gotta do this, gotta do that. And I just went on and forgot about singing. And I just started thinking about, I want to get into GM. I want to get into GM. So as I got older, I put an application at GM in 73, but they never did call me. And I just kept working. Look, my first job I was a waitress. It was okay. I was 16 when I was a waitress, and the guy that owned the place, he was trying to like me, and I didn't like that. So I kind of let that job go. And then I kept trying. I wanted to work in GM. That's my heart desire was to get into GM because I said if I could just get into if I could just get into GM, all of my trouble would be over. And it was. And God was in the background still steering me on because He knows that I needed a job, that I needed to get out of the situation that I was in, that I was going to be poor, hungry, and broke. I didn't get in GM. I knew it because I didn't have this the confidence to get up and talk. Or I went to school, but then I was shy and I just didn't have the confidence that I was somebody and I could do something, I just felt, I don't know, was just shy and I always thought people were looking down on me and stuff like that because I had came from the South and I was poor and I always had that, I don't know, I didn't have no confidence in myself. But I wanted to get in GM and I kept on trying. So I got a job. I said, I'm going to get out of this situation. So I got a job working in a small factory and I was making $2.60 an hour. And I worked that job for a whole year. That's what got me off of my heels and put me on some wheel. That mean I started driving and got a little red Volkswagen. I brought a red Volkswagen from this guy who was a police officer. As soon as I got my red Volkswagen, somebody hit me in the back. So there I had to get $500 to get the motor fixed of my red Volkswagen because guy had hit and he ran away. Anyway, guy came out to the small factory that I was working in, and he said that he heard that GM was hiring, and I said GM is hiring, so I asked this girl, her name was Ruth, to come out and go with me to Ypsilanti and fill out an application, and she said no, and nobody wanted to go with me, but I kept in my heart that I had self-determination. I was going out there. So I got in my Volkswagen and I drove out to Ypsilanti. That was about 35 minutes from Detroit because at the time I was living in Detroit and you had to go fill out your application at the unemployment office. So when I got there, I think I got there about 10 o'clock, maybe 9:45 or 10. When I got there and got up to the desk, the guy say, where's your social security card? He said, you can't fill out an application unless you have your social security card. And I said, well, I know my number. He said, yeah, but I need to see your social security card. So I asked him, could I run back home and get my social security card and come back and fill out the application? He said, we're going on lunch break at 11:30. If you can be back here before 11:30, then I'll let you fill out your application. So I ran home, which was a 30-minute drive from Ypsilanti to Detroit, found my social security card, and I ran back to the unemployment office, and I got there at 11 o'clock. He let me fill out my application, and a lady called me from GM. I gave her my aunt number, and my aunt, she told me that somebody called from GM that they wanted to know about a job, and I called the lady back, and the lady asked me was I'm still interested in working for GM, and I told her yes, I was still interested. But she said we called you back January 17th, 1979. We'll call you for orientation. You have to take the physical. And I said, well, thank you. I'll wait. So I waited, and they did call me back in January, and I did take my physical. And I started working January the 17th, 1979. And I'm not going to tell you that job was a bed of roses because that job was hard. They put me in the body shop. The body shop was the worst part of the plant to work in. I mean, they put me in a hole and I had to put on an overall and had to put the shield over my face. And they gave me 3-spot welding gun. And the car was coming above my head, and I had the 3-spot welding gun. I had the spot weld up under the bottom of the car. I had one in the front of me, the spot welding gun, one in the middle, and one in front. So I had to do the back, the one in the middle, and then the front, and that was constantly all day. And that was a bad job. Then I heard this girl was giving up her job, and I asked her, could I have her job? We had to jump on the front of the car while they moving, and you had to put some kind of part on. But that was a little bit better than the job that I had. And I worked at Ypsilanti, and I got laid off, and then I worked at Ford plant. They made the Cadillac, and I worked there for 2 years, and I got laid off, and we was laid off for between 6 to 8 years, and then I started working at Plant Motor, and I worked there for 9 months, and I got laid off from there, and then they sent me to another plant in GM, and I stayed there till I retired. I didn't get all of my years because I wasn't gonna make up the years I had lost from GM, but I heard they was giving a buyout, but they wasn't giving me any money, but they was gonna give me a package deal where I get my medical, and then they was gonna give me a fixed income until I was at the age of 62 till I can get my Social Security. So they offered me a package deal, and I went out. I could have kept on working because I was still young, which I wish I would have, but I didn't because I didn't have a bad job. I was a machine operator. I got the job as an inside training job, so the job was really good. I thought about had made a mistake, but it was too late. But anyway, that's what happened. Like I said, the day I went to Motown, and the day they say that your talent didn't reach our standard. And but I got a job working at GM. Um, and I liked it singing. I thought it was nice. And at that time, you didn't have to go through what you're going through now. You could just call the record company and you just set up a audition, and they'll just tell you come down and you sing. And if they like you, you get signed to a record deal. But if your talent and reach their standard, you got the boot out the door. And that's the way it was. But Motown, Detroit was such a beautiful place. When I came to Detroit, we had Babalo, and you can go across the bridge and stay at Babalo. It was like an island. It was so beautiful. You could stay there 24/7. It was safe there. And back in Detroit, it was so nice. We had the Motown sound. We had the cars coming out. We had everybody was coming to Motown. You could just come there and just get a good paying job because Chrysler, Ford, and GM, they was hiring. You can work at GM, didn't like GM, and you can get hired at Ford the next day. Or you didn't like Ford, you can go to Chrysler. They was hiring. And it was just such a night. We had Babalo Island. We was in Cedar Point was not that far from us. They had so much going on in Detroit back in the late 60s and early 70s, and 80 was okay and 90 was okay, kind of. But 90, that's when it started going down here. Detroit started getting bad and people started moving out. But in the 60s and 70s, it was such a place to be. I mean, we had all the music, all the restaurant. It was a nice place when I came. But like I said, it started slipping and it went all the way down. And I mean, I liked the Detroit. Detroit was a place to be. And I'm not going to downgrade Detroit because I had found a job there. I got a good job there. Had a nice place there. My sister and I, we had what we call it good time. We used to go party a lot. And I looked up to my sister because she was 4 years older than I was. And she was just like a hero to me. When she was going out, I could tell she put her makeup on. I said, "You going out tonight?" And she said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm going with you." We used to go to clubs and stuff. We had fun time back in the days. You can go to a club and nobody would kill you. We was just dance the night away. Then after the club, we would go to after hours party. Somebody would give you a card and say they having a party. We would go there. It was just nice. It's just like I said, it started slipping in the 90s. Detroit was a nice place to be. My aunt had a place, nice, and then my grandmother had a nice place. It was really, and it was safe, kind of safe to walk the street. It's nothing like it is today. Crime, the kids would sing and not heard back then. Just like it was down south. They would sing, but not heard. Kids respect older peoples back in the day. But like I said, this is my story. I wanted to tell you today that I went to Motown. It's a true story. I was there. And Motown had started way before I came to Detroit. They was up and running. But I remember Diana Ross, the Marvelettes. Those are my favorite group. I like the Martha Reeves and the Vandella dancing in the streets and the contour. It was just so, and the Temptation. Oh wow, I really liked the Temptation. My sister, she liked the Temptation too. When they put out My Girl, I can remember the day. Me and my sister, we were walking. It was not that far from where we lived, but we lived it on the north end at the time when My Girl came out, when David Ruffin was singing My Girl, and we would walk, I don't know, walk across a bridge or something like that. And we heard this song and it just blew my mind. Oh, that song was so nice. And we had this old fashioned record player where we had the big old big records and the 45, and we used to go up to the shop and we could get a 45 for about 25 cents or something like that. And Beverly, her mother always give them allowance, like, and she would go by the song would drop and we would play it in our living room and dance. We just had so much fun growing up in Detroit. Detroit was a place to be back in the mid 60s and 70s. So I just wanted to tell you my story. Like I said, the day I went to Motown. Anyway, have you accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior? If not, I pray that you will accept him as your Savior because he loved you so much that he went down the cross for your sin. Anyway, I hope you like this video. I hope you comment and I hope you subscribe and come back and see me sometime. Don't you know that Jesus loves you and I love you too? You have a blessed day and bye for now.